All right, let's dive right into this explainer. Today, we're unpacking the totally verified, completely declassified history of Area 51. We're going to discover how its very real secrets birthed a legendary mythology. We'll be tracking the evolution of a dusty, middle-of-nowhere patch of Nevada desert from a humble silver mine into literally the epicenter of the most advanced, top-secret aerospace development in human history.
But first, we gotta tackle the ultimate question, right? Is it a highly classified aerospace testing ground or a subterranean alien base? I mean, the name Area 51 immediately conjures up these vivid images of crashed flying saucers and massive extraterrestrial cover-ups. We're definitely gonna explore those claims a bit later, but the astonishing truth of the base's verified history, it is honestly just as mind-bending as the science fiction it inspired.
So, let's kick things off with Chapter 1, Silver Mines to Paradise Ranch.
You know, long before there were supersonic jets ripping through the sky, there were just pickaxes. Back in 1864, lead and silver were discovered in the Groom Range, and you actually had English and American companies financing mining operations there well into the 20th century. By 1942, the military stepped in and built 2 unpaved runways for the Indian Springs Auxiliary Field. But the true turning point, the real game changer, hit in 1955. The CIA needed complete, total isolation for a highly classified project, so they officially acquired the Groom Lake salt flat.
And the man who actually chose the site was legendary Lockheed designer Clarence Kelly Johnson. He was flying over the Nevada desert looking for a remote testing location completely away from prying eyes. He looked down at this dry lake bed and just marveled at how perfectly flat it was. He said it was as smooth as a billiard table without anything even being done to it. So he successfully urged the CIA to buy the land. But here's the funny part. To convince his top-tier engineers to relocate to this barren, dusty desert with zero amenities, he pulled a brilliant PR move. He cheerfully named this desolate base Paradise Ranch.
Which brings us to Chapter 2, U-2, the first spy plane.
80,000 feet. Literally, take a second to wrap your head around that number. That was the target altitude for the U-2 spy plane. To put that into perspective, in the mid-1950s, commercial airliners were flying around 20,000 feet, and standard military jets maxed out at maybe 40,000. But the CIA needed to peer deep into Soviet territory without getting shot down, which meant they needed an aircraft that outflew any radar or missile of that era. Testing a capability that extreme, that is exactly why Groom Lake was born.
Moving right along to Chapter 3, Project Oxcart and Mach 3.
So escalating Cold War intelligence problems required even faster solutions. The U-2 flew incredibly high, sure, but it was slow. The rapid, mind-bending technological leaps the U.S. made over just a few decades are wild. Think about it. In 1955, the absolute focus was altitude. By 1962, just 7 years later, the priority completely shifted to raw, blistering speed with the A-12 Oxcart, which could fly at Mach 3. That's 3 times the speed of sound. And then, by 1981, the whole paradigm shifted entirely again, this time to absolute invisibility with the F-117 Nighthawk. These were entirely new realms of aerospace engineering, all being born in total secret.
And the thing is, it wasn't just one plane at a time. Area 51 was this absolute hive of classified operations, all happening simultaneously. I mean, they were pushing the Mach 3 A-12 to its absolute limits, and at the same time launching highly classified D-21 tagboard drones off the backs of other aircraft mid-flight. Incredibly, through a program called Have Donut, they were even secretly evaluating acquired Soviet MiG-21 fighter jets. Top U.S. pilots would literally engage in mock dogfights against actual Soviet planes right over the Nevada desert to figure out their weaknesses and train our own pilots. Just imagine being a fly on the wall for that.
All right, let's jump into Chapter 4, F-1117, Developing Stealth.
By the time we hit the late 1970s and 80s, raw speed just wasn't enough anymore. The military needed to become invisible to radar. This era ushered in the Have Blue prototype, which directly paved the way for the famous F-117 Nighthawk. But here's where it gets really crazy. Because Soviet spy satellites were constantly passing overhead, the logistics were a nightmare. They literally had to disassemble these strange, angular aircraft, load them into massive C-5 cargo planes at night, fly them into Area 51 in the pitch dark, and hastily hide them inside hangars before the sun even came up. Total, absolute secrecy.
But you know, I love this little detail because it injects some real humanity into this intense narrative. The dedicated test team working on the F-117 at the time needed a name. Well, one day they found this massive scorpion just crawling around their highly classified offices. And rather than panic, they basically just said, yep, that's it, and adopted it as their official mascot. They dubbed themselves the Barra Scorpions. It's just a really great reminder that behind all this intimidating futuristic military hardware, there were real people working exhausting night shifts out in the middle of nowhere.
And now, what you've probably been waiting for. Chapter 5, The UFO Connection. Okay, so we absolutely have to talk about how this real-world Black Ops reality compares to the famous UFO folklore. On one side, we have the verified facts, testing experimental titanium aircraft and acquired foreign tech. On the flip side, we have the legendary folklore claiming the base house's reverse-engineered alien spacecraft, including materials supposedly recovered from a 1953 crash in Kingman, Arizona. And you know it makes perfect sense. When a government draws a massive, invisible box in the desert and tells everyone they will be arrested if they even look inside, human imagination is naturally going to fill that void with the extraordinary. Because over the decades, this fascinating tapestry of whistleblower claims just exploded into the mainstream. You have Bob Lazar claiming in 1989 that he reverse-engineered alien propulsion at a secret underground facility called S4. You've got microbiologist Dan Burrish reporting that he cared for an insectoid entity named J-Rod. There are even claims from Lockheed scientists about working alongside 18 extraterrestrials, wild tales of an alien ambassador named Valiant Thor, and rumors of these vast, sprawling underground tunnel systems. Now, we aren't here to validate or debunk any of this, but we have to acknowledge how deeply these stories shaped the entire cultural identity of this facility. But here is the absolute kicker. The incredible, very real capabilities of these top-secret planes, they are exactly what triggered decades of UFO sightings. Just imagine, you're a commercial pilot in the 1960s, casually cruising at 20,000 feet. Suddenly, 60,000 feet above you, the wide, disc-like titanium body of an A-12 ox cart just whizzes by at 2,000 miles per hour, catching the setting sun and glowing like a fiery disc in the sky. I mean, to anyone looking up, it absolutely looked like a flying saucer. The CIA and Air Force investigated these sightings, realized it was just their own secret planes, but couldn't tell the public the truth. And that silence? It only fueled the mystery. Which leaves us with one final, incredibly provocative question to think about. The Have Blue and F-117 stealth aircraft, they were tested at Area 51 way back in the late 1970s and 80s. That stealth technology is basically standard in modern aviation today. So if they were working on literal radar invisibility 40 years ago, what kind of mind-bending, seemingly otherworldly technology might be flying over the Groom Lake salt flats tonight? It really makes you wonder, doesn't it? Maybe the reality of what's out there right now is actually stranger than the fiction. Thank you so much for joining me on this explainer, and hey, keep your eyes on the skies.